Welcome to my journey through the Bible. This will be a summary of 1 King, chapter 1, verses 1 through 53. And now King David was very old, and when he was covered with blankets, he still could not keep his own body heat. There was a beautiful virgin that was brought before him to lie with King David. She did minister to him, but she did not have sex with him. Now Adonijah was preparing himself to be king after David had passed. Adonijah had got chariots and horsemen and took 50 men before him, and King David did not know anything of this. Adonijah had prepared a meal with sheep and oxen and cattle in abundance. He had invited all of the king's sons except for Solomon. He invited Joab and one of the priests. And then Nathan the prophet had heard that Adonijah was preparing to take over the throne of David once he passed. And so Nathan had went to Bathsheba, and he said to her, "Was it not that King David told you that Solomon would be the next to reign? The king does not know what Adonijah is doing. You must go unto the king and let him know. For this will save not only your life, but the life of your son Solomon." So Bathsheba had went into the king's chamber, and she bowed herself before the king, and she said, "O King David, did you not swear to your handmaiden that Solomon would be the next king to rule after you, that he would sit upon your throne? Why is it that Adonijah reigns? Does the king not know that Adonijah has prepared oxen and sheep and cattle in abundance, and he has invited all of the king's sons except for Solomon? O king, you are the eye of Israel, and you will decide who sits upon the throne. But I fear that myself and Solomon will be offense to the rest of your sons." Now, while Bathsheba was still talking to King David, Nathan came in and said, "O King David," and he began to bow himself before the king, and he said, "Do you know that Adonijah has prepared a meal, and he has killed oxen and sheep and cattle in abundance? He has invited all of the king's sons except for Solomon. He has also invited the captain of your army and one of the priests. Now myself and the high priest and Solomon have not been invited to this meal." And King David said, "Oh, as the Lord lives, and as he has delivered me from all stress, Solomon will be on the king's throne." So King David had told Nathan and the high priest to bring Solomon before him, put on King David's robe upon Solomon, and put Solomon upon the king's donkey, and blow the trumpets, and take him through the city, and say, "Long lives the King Solomon." And so the men did as the king had ordered them to do. And then the counselor, King David's counselor, had said, "May the Lord be with Solomon as he has been with David. And may the Lord allow Solomon's kingdom to be greater than David's kingdom." And once they had placed Solomon on the king's donkey and took him through the city, there was much rejoicing and lots of noise. And Adonijah had heard the noise as well as his guest, and wondered what was going on. And then Jonathan had came by, and they grabbed him and said, "You are a good man that brings good news. What is all this commotion?" And Jonathan had said, "The king has selected Solomon to be the king to rule after him in his death. King David has placed his robe upon Solomon, and has put him upon his donkey. And the trumpets have blown, and all of Israel and Judah are rejoicing over Solomon, the new king." And even the counselor has said, "May the Lord be with Solomon as he has been with David, and may Solomon's kingdom be greater than the kingdom of David." And when all the guests had heard this, they were afraid and they scattered. And then Adonijah had feared Solomon, and so he went and fell upon the altar. And it was told to King Solomon that his brother was on the altar. And so as King Solomon had came out to the altar, Adonijah had bowed down before him and said, "Do not slay me with your sword." And Solomon had said, "If you be of a good man, then not one of your hairs will be touched. But if you have nothing but evil, you will die." And Adonijah was sent to his house. May God be with you in everything and in every way.